we recently uploaded a video where we 3D modeled an LS engine inside a hurcan CAD model, but a lot of the responses that were in the comment sections were that the turbos were facing the wrong directions, where the compressor wheel was facing towards the rear of the engine and the hot side of the turbos will be facing towards the front. So I've gone and modeled it according to what the majority of the people would like it to see it. So some benefits from this is that you're using less material. The turbos will be in the normal direction where the compressor is facing forward. You can also use a lot less bends in the airflow. But the bad thing is that, maybe not the bad thing, but an opposite to that is that you won't be able to see the turbo logos like the Garrett and Garrett name or precision name, because the turbo is facing the opposite direction, so you won't be able to look directly towards the compressor and the turbine wheel. But the pros of it is that the exhaust is really easy to design and create. It's just almost a straight shot through the mid section of the bumper. There's a lot less bends in the intercooler pipe. So there's supposed to be a transmission between here and the rear axles. So if I can pull that up real quick. Here, the current build is Texas Speed build engine with the transmission in between the frames. What's not included in this CAD model is the railing for the huracan, but it looks like the transmission will go directly towards the rear axles, and looks like the intake manifold is actually turned 180 degrees, but there's plenty of space above the transmission, so that's where I've gone already include that here. So the intake manifold, a little bit hard to see when it's painted black. Let's try a different color. It looks like there will be a lot of space above the transmission and above between the rear wheels. So trying to reduce steel and utilizing aluminum for the rear system. And kind of wanted to contemplate what the car would look like, kind of like a Ute or a El Camino. I think it would be the easiest option if you wanted to complete the build, if we were just to remove the roof, kind of like how we had. Be pretty unique. Be pretty much just like the convertible he had without the engine cover, so pretty much locates the engine directly behind the driver. So the current model that is planned to be designed would include a lot of bends and maybe some unnecessary aesthetics. So the point here is that the turbos will face rearward by showcasing the turbos above the engine hatch, but there's just so much space in this engine bay. Anyone would have to do that out of constraints. According to this model, that's not really scaled to and have a lot of clearance space in between. One thing to consider would be to look at maybe ways the turbo could be oriented. I guess from the benefit from having the turbos facing forward like this, we can utilize some of the original vents that the Huracan already has, such as the one near the rear window, and just have that air pumped into the engine bay on both sides for the turbo. I'm creating a ducting here. Probably a challenge that would face if we were to use this design would be that the tailpipes could melt the taillights. So like the exhaust could melt the taillights here from getting too hot, or maybe some back pressure, backfire. Possibly even utilizing the stock exhaust location in the bottom, but I think that's too much of a challenge with the clearance between the tires and the challenge to reduce the amount of weight or the amount of material used. But the car is probably close to 3,000 pounds, so 100 pounds and a 4,000 pound car is 2.5% of its actual weight. And let's see. I think this model that I used here was just like a standard exhaust for a LS engine. It kind of looks like the one that Cletus McFarlane used in his build with Ruby. where he flipped the exhaust and switched sides so that the exhaust would face upward. So I think this is what a lot of people were looking for, and just maybe utilizing some scoops. I think it would be too challenging to an air duct from the top. And like the McLaren's roof scoop. So this will be an awesome implementation, but you won't be able to see the turbos. Possibly maybe cutting this hole here, cutting a hole in the body, and just adding any sort of transparent material so you can see the turbos. That would be really cool. So just looking at it as a heating standpoint, if this design were to go through, it'd be really cool. Probably the lightest way to do it. Challenge is that possibly burning the rear accessories, tail lights or bumpers, reducing the amount of aggressive bends and the intercooling piping and the exhaust piping. So the turbo is just directly fitted to the exhaust manifold, 90-degree bend towards the rear, and then a slight bend towards the center to just a concept of the intercooler that would go to the, I think it's a intake manifold. And then see, is there any other challenges that would be faced with utilizing this setup? I guess also there's options to look at maybe which directions to even go with in the turbos, right? So if I were to try to rotate this, so the benefit of the turbos facing this direction is that when you look into the engine bay, you will see that aggressive Garrett logo on the turbos, while being able to look inside the compressor wheel. And challenge is that maybe this exhaust is a little bit too close to the intake manifold, so possibly it would be really aggressive to use a intercooler, but there's just so much space in this engine bay that it could be, the intercooler could almost be placed anywhere. So I could definitely see why that would be kind of cool. For it to be above the engine hatch, that would be kind of ridiculous. It's just throwing the turbocharger above the body line. So if I were to move it somewhere up here, that would be absolutely ridiculous. It's almost like the Ruby build where the turbocharger was above the roofline, or Leeward, where it's almost impossible to see through. So rear visibility could be a challenge in that. Definitely with having the exhaust pipes Another way would possibly be to redirect the exhaust pipes towards maybe a side exit. If he did that, that would be kind of cool, or like a rear quarter panel exit. That would be one way to make the build super fast and one easy solution to go with. Giant turbo. So what I'm thinking is that if we went with this design, maybe one possible way to reduce the amount of pins for the exhaust to go rearward would be just to add a side cut here from the down or from the turbo, right? That'd be kind of cool. It would kind of reduce the amount of tubing that would encompass the engine bay, so definitely a unique way to build a LS Hurricane. Challenge would be possibly having that intercooler fed by the turbos. And then having it almost having a sharp U-turn back to the intake manifold. So that's why I kind of drew this up, because definitely advocate for this kind of style setup. It's pretty simple. It's probably a lot easier to complete this within his 90 days if he's got a lot of body work to do. This can be done probably pretty quickly, utilizing some off-the-shelf parts. So the red is hot and blue is cold. I'm really happy how this ended up out of place. So there's definitely a lot of work to rebuilding the rear end. A lot of challenges ahead for him. It looks like the current idea is to have the exhaust shoot out have the exhaust kind of exit near the end of the engine bay here. So if you were to find a hoop or an engine hood like this one, I think there's kind of a nice panel that can kind of look almost unmodified. But I'm definitely a fan of the no rear bumper look. I think that would be awesome. A no front bumper would be maybe a little bit too much. I'd probably go for that too. maybe without side skirts too. Hey, if you don't work on the front bumper, side skirts, and two-piece rear bumper, saves you a ton of work, gives you a lot of time to work on that rear quarter panel. Find an engine hood, and really sure that mechanically and electrically that the car is functioning and driving within the 90-day given period. Still gives you a lot of room to work on the body kit for the front and rear quarter panels. I guess that's just kind of me though. So first picture that came up, or the second picture that came up, was Lamborghini without a rear bumper. So that would look awesome. It looks like this one's also a hurcan, and the turbos are facing inwards with the exhaust towards the rear of the tire. And then the intakes are kind of scooped outwards, while the compressor wheel looks like it bends back towards the intake of the hurcan. Yeah, so that would look cool. So it'll save you a ton of time, a ton of money to just not buy those two rear bumpers. So definitely would go for that. And then that, I think there was a duck spoiler that I'm really looking forward to. I don't know, those things are kind of overhyped. This piece of plastic, I don't know, doesn't look like much. It's kind of like the upper windshield, rear windshield spoilers. So this would look kind of cool, but they would give you a lot of space, so it'd be easy to work on, easy for maintenance. If you ever had to get the turbos out, less piping to deal with.